like Eddie Van Halen. A lot of people think he's American, but Eddie's Dutch, He moved to the United States when he was 14 with his family. So I used to hang out at Eddie's place when we were recording the Manic Eden album in 94. And with Eddie, I just talk Dutch, and with Alex the same thing. And Eddie and Alex, amongst each other, they speak Dutch too. When he moved to the States, it was the 1960s. And as you know, like everywhere else too, language developed. Like in the 60s in Holland, the language, different expression a little bit and different words. It was the hippie period. There were certain words that were used a lot and that are not used a lot anymore now. But Eddie and Alex still use them because they speak 60s Dutch. I know it used to drive Sammy Hagar nuts and Dave Roth, because when Alex and Eddie speak amongst each other in Dutch, nobody knows what the fuck they're talking about. Sammy got really pissed off because he always assumed that they were talking about him. Maybe they were, I don't know.
I'm assuming Michael Schenker, was he an influence?
Well, Michael and I are pretty much the same age, and we are both from the European style of playing. So I've always seen a lot of connection with Michael as far as my choice of notes and stuff, because I was raised in a family with classical music. My sister is a classical concert pianist, and my dad used to play classical piano and jazz piano all the time. So our house was one big pandemonium of classical, jazz, and rock music. And yeah, Michael is a fantastic player. I mean, I've always looked at Michael as like the Mozart of guitar, whereas Eddie is like a natural successor to guys like Jimi Hendrix to me, because the way Eddie changed guitar playing and influenced basically every other rock player after him. When I started playing, it was guys like Jimi Hendrix and early Eric Clapton and Leslie West and Jeff Beck. When Eddie and Michael came to my knowledge, I already developed my style pretty much, and then every great player influences me. When I feel a connection with somebody's playing, whether it's Michael Schenker or Brian May or Jimi Hendrix or Jeff Beck or Eddie Van Halen, there's always a trace left behind, I suppose. That's the way I look at it, because when it touches you, when you hear, whether it's a singer or a saxophone player or a guitar player, to me, it always leaves a trace, I think, somewhere in my subconscious.
Did Vandenberg tour with Ozzy on the Bark at the Moon tour?
Yeah, we did. It was fantastic. We toured for about 4 months, United States. And after that, I've seen Ozzy quite regularly because with Whitesnake, our assistant tour manager has been Ozzy's lifelong best friend, ever since elementary school. His name was Pete Mertens, and Pete and I used to go to Ozzy for a cup of tea occasionally, when we were in LA. But the tour with Ozzy was fantastic because Jake Lee was playing with them. That's actually where I met Tommy for the first time. And when Vandenberg started headlining after the Ozzy tour, we had a couple of shows where Quiet Riot was supporting us. And that's when I got to know Rudy. So on the first tour, I got to know Rudy and Tommy. I couldn't expect to be in the band with them a couple of years later. So it was pretty interesting how that goes.
I've been doing interviews for about 15 years, and I'm always blown away at the connections. It can be one guy has a connection with a certain group of guys, and then those guys have a connection with another guy that the first guy had jammed with. It's just bizarre.
This big spider web where everybody kind of gets tangled into, especially, once you make a name for yourself or in a band or something or whatever, then the connections get closer because you start touring with each other, either special guesting or headlining or whatever, and you get to know all kinds of people. That's one of the things that I really enjoyed about touring, because I met so many of my heroes over the years.
On that Ozzy tour, you became friends with Jake, right?
Yeah, Jake and I used to hang out quite regularly. I haven't seen him for a long time. The funny thing is, when I started with MoonKings, pretty much at the same time, Jake came out of hibernation, just like me. We both stayed away since about 1990 or something, and we came back on the scene in the same year. Jake with his band,
Red Dragon Cartel.
Yeah, the Dragon Cartel, and me with MoonKings. An interesting parallel,
Right.
But I always thought we got on great. I think he's a fantastic player. It's just a pity that he kind of disappeared for quite a while. But what I read at one point was that he wanted to take care of his mom or something. His mother was ill or something, and that's an important reason why he kind of stayed away for quite some time.
What was he like back then?
very relaxed, focused with his playing, of course. What we regularly did, we had breakfast at places like Howard Johnson's, that kind of stuff, you know. Actually, Jake introduced me to onion rings. I remember that. I never knew onion rings. That was one of the things, you know. And sometimes we hang out on each other's tour bus.
Would you jam together?
No, I don't think we ever jammed together. But I do remember a couple of times that we warmed up with our guitars not connected, just like dry, not electric. Just like a practice guitar on your lap and just fiddle before the show a little bit.